Now, we took a very quick look at using Whois through a web interface before. What I want to show you now is using Whois from the command line. And no matter where you are running Whois from, whether it's a small application on a Windows box or whether it's through a web interface, what you're doing is you are communicating with the various regional internet registries. And Whois is going to work the same no matter what mechanism you are using to interrogate those databases. So, for example, I can look up an IP address, and what I am going to get back here is I'm going to get back the name of the company that owns this particular IP address. Keeping along with that, I can do a lookup on a domain name, and theoretically, I can find the name of the company that owns the domain name. Now, some domains are actually going to be private, meaning that they are stored behind some anonymous entity, so you may not always be able to get the information that you're looking for. But in this case, we've got level 3 communications. Now, the one thing that we didn't look at before when it came to the IP address is I looked up one IP address. What I ended up getting was the entire net range, and then the CIDR notation, which is classless internet domain routing. And we've got the net handle, and this was a direct allocation. So I can look up other IP addresses and I can get not only the organization that owns the IP address, but I can get the entire block that the IP address came out of. I've got a way of looking up a lot of information from the regional internet registries using Whois. As I said, I'm using command line here, but in the case of using a web interface, you're going to get the same information back. It's probably going to look much the same as what we are looking at here. So if I were to use the command line, though, one thing that I can do is I can specify which regional internet registry I want to communicate with. So I'm going to query whois.aaron.net here, and I'm going to ask about that IP address. Because it's owned by Aaron, then I'm going to get the information that I need. If I were to check, for example, RIPE, then I'm probably going to get an error back because the IP address isn't actually owned by RIPE, which is the European registry. So you can see that they have no information related to that particular block because it's actually coming out of the Aaron registry, and that was where we looked before. Using Whois, we can gather a lot of information about IP addresses and domain names and host names and so forth.